Yeah, a few days ago, the DA launched a bill that it calls the Economic Inclusion for All Bill. And the bill is billed to replace South Africa's black economic empowerment infrastructure. And doing this is very important for a number of reasons, and I think the implications are far greater than even some of the DA people who've been behind this fully understand. What the bill does is essentially two things. It says that we don't need to use race as a proxy for disadvantage, and we can instead replace race as the proxy with poverty, and that poverty is a much better proxy for disadvantage, which is obviously completely correct, is how empowerment policy should have been done in South Africa for the past 30 years. The second thing the bill says is that procurement spending in government, which is tied currently to all kinds of racial requirements, should instead be based in the main, largely solely, on value to communities and value to taxpayers. And the DA has put this forward. And the first interesting thing I can tell you is that the response to it has been generally positive in the country. And this is for anyone that's done this stuff as long as I have, is quite a remarkable thing to see. Some of the press even called it a bold move. The business community is quietly supportive of what it's doing. And even the ANC and formally on the record, and President Ramaphosa have responded in a most interesting way. The ANC spokesperson said, "This is ridiculous, we'll never allow it. BE will stay the way it is. However, we are a party that is open to discussion, and this is something we'd be willing to talk about." And Mr. Ramaphosa said that while he hadn't read the bill, this was his response: "I haven't read it, I'm not aware of its contents. But the right place to talk about this is in Parliament and take it there," which is an astonishing thing to say. And I can remember more than 20 years ago that Thabo Mbeki would not debate Tony Leon. And the reason Mbeki gave, quite rightly from the ANC's sort of political perspective, was that if I debate Leon, I will be saying that the DA has ideas that are worthy of consideration at all. To now be in a position 2 decades later where the DA proposes a policy, not any policy, this is the foundational South African policy. The only policy that matters in South Africa is this: how does the South African state deal with the legacy of apartheid? And for the ANC, black empowerment policy was the way to do that. It was the centerpiece of all its policy. Everything else was secondary in importance. And to have reached a point where the opposition would hold a jam-packed press conference and say we're going to do it completely differently by removing race, and that the press respond positively to that and ask interesting questions about how it might work. And I spoke to some of the DA guys that did the press briefing. And even the state broadcaster, they said, while trying to kind of bat for their side, we're actually really interested in what this would do and how it would work. I mean, to have moved that far, firstly, and then to get the ruling party to respond to it. So you're responding to what your opponent is saying on the policy, and to firstly say we might be open to discussing this. And secondly, that perhaps the right place to do this is in Parliament. I said to someone this morning that South Africa is changing at lightning speed, and that's not recognised for what it is at all. And I can tell you further, privately, if any ANC person was to jump on this and say it's absurd and we can't do it, I would say to them, do you mean to tell me that it is not true that in the ranks of the leadership of your own party, this discussion hasn't come up more and more of late? that the consequences of the manner in which BE is practiced, both in terms of taxing capital and therefore making South Africa very difficult to invest in, and explaining its low investment rate, and to the extent that race-based procurement laws have served as a fig leaf for extraordinary corruption, that you yourselves don't quietly have discussions on how you might be able to exit from this policy. And I can tell you they certainly are doing that at the moment. The last two things I'll say is that the importance for the DA, I mean, they're good guys and they're modest about their success and everything. And I met with some of them this week. But to be politically successful, you need to do two things. One is you need to make progress on the streets, winning elections, challenging for power. And as anyone who's followed the country knows, that has happened. The ANC lost an election last year, and the economic centres of Gauteng and Johannesburg, the ANC now trails the DA in the polls ahead of an election set for just over a year from now. So on the streets, it's winning. But you've got to win on another terrain as well. And that second terrain is the terrain of ideas. You've got to shape the thinking of people. And the ANC was always so good at that, as Mr. Mbeki well understood. And that has been surrendered now to the opposition, who are setting the pace on how South Africans think about what is the foundational policy. And the DA has been successful here because the ANC has allowed a very dangerous situation to develop, where your voters and your supporters overtake the leadership of the party in terms of the ideas that they're willing to entertain. And Gabriel and myself, who have a sort of joint interest in the Social Research Foundation, I kind of sort of look at it, and then Gabriel runs everything and does all the work. And Gabriel sent me some amazing charts, tables, that I'll take you through briefly now, and that I've shared widely with politicians everywhere in the last couple of days. So Gabriel takes us back to October 2023, and the foundation asks that the government should appoint only the best candidates to jobs, regardless of their race. And 87% of all respondents agreed with that. Amongst black respondents, it was 84. Amongst ANC respondents, it was also 84. A second query, I'll jump through them a bit for you, is that when the government buys goods or services, it should do so based on the best price and value, regardless of the race of the company supplying these goods. And 85% of South Africans said they agreed with that. Go to 2024, and the questions that Gabriel's now posing are about the coalition government. And he says a future coalition government should make race-based rules stricter so that we properly enforce this BE thing, or this coalition government should abandon the whole idea, get rid of race-based appointments so that all government officials are appointed only on merit. And support for the only on merit option was 74%. Amongst black voters, it was 68%, and amongst ANC voters, it was 64%. On procurement, the GNU should abandon race-based procurement and, in fact, do exactly what the DA has proposed on Monday. In support of that was 71% of all voters, 64% of black voters, and 61% of ANC voters. And he goes on into another survey done later in that year, and he asks the same questions again. And on the question of abandoning race-based appointments in the civil service and race-based procurement, again, he gets these very overwhelming majorities amongst ANC voters. 73% support abandoning race-based appointments, and 57% supported abandoning diluting, abandoning race-based stuff. And what has clearly happened, and I think why this response has been so muted from the critics and positive from people who previously have been quiet, is that it does resonate broadly with public opinion. And the ANC has been asleep at the wheel here, and its voters have overtaken it on the right. And the DA now commands the thinking on empowerment, and therefore the central most important policy determines the future of the country. It's a huge shift in really the entire